If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness, although a tear may be ever so near. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile. What's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile. If you just smile, you'll find that life's worthwhile. If you just smile. Modern Times is no perfect movie. Ha cha 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 cha. Hats off to anyone who actually understood that reference, by the way. I'm sure there's at least one or two, at least I'm hoping. Grandma, Grandpa, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Anyways, Modern Times was Charlie Chaplin's last film as the Little Tramp, who in this movie is living in the Great Depression. He's struggling alongside this orphan girl that he recently met, played by Paulette Goddard, because of two reasons. One being the Tramp's usual bad luck, and two being how work industries were changing possibly for the worst at that time. Businesses were replacing manual labor with machinery for the sake of saving a profit, and the machinery that did require manual labor led to so many advances that it became tough for laborers to handle the machinery in the first place, which of course leads to some of the best physical comedy in this movie. And I was really excited to check out Modern Times because I've actually never seen a full-length silent movie. I've only seen clips from Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin movies in video essays as examples of really good sight gags, and I agreed with all of that. I thought they were funny, but I never really had the urge to check them out. Plus, streaming services have, like, few to none in regards to silent movies because there really isn't that big of a demand other than huge, hardcore film aficionados. But since I'm covering classical movies and I've always wanted to check out more silent movies anyways, and with all the free time that I had, I gave Modern Times a view on Netflix, and it was my first and thankfully not last silent movie I'll ever see because Modern Times was such a huge surprise in so many ways. The biggest surprise, of course, being with the physical comedy, with the slapstick. You hear it all the time that Charlie Chaplin was a comedic genius in the silent era, and I was hesitant to think that way because I'm not really a big fan of labeling directors as like geniuses or hacks, but having seen this movie, Charlie Chaplin really was a comedic genius because of how great he was at selling a laugh without any words whatsoever. It didn't matter if the gags were forced or obvious or so predictable that you could see them coming a mile away. What really matters and what was Chaplin's greatest skill was his comedic timing and delivery, because he and the other actors have these exaggerated facial expressions that tell you everything you need to know about these people without any dialogue whatsoever, but never to a point where it felt cartoony or unrealistic. If anything, the stunts in this movie seem as plausible as you could possibly get, and that's because the gags and the reactions to the gags were, for the most part, done in one single take, which made it feel real, made it feel impressive, and made us understand these characters as people while still laughing at them, because that's something that slapstick comedies often don't really understand. The sight gags, the reactions especially, matter so much to the characters, and in many cases, the reactions matter more than the pratfalls, because the Tramp has two recurring reactions that really sum him up as a character. One is this dumbfounded look of confusion that happens for two reasons. One of which is when he's in the wrong place in the wrong time and he's an innocent person who doesn't understand what's going on and he suffers for it. Or the second one being when he has intentionally caused someone some problems and he just doesn't realize it. And the second expression is this very coy, guilty smile that says that he understands the trouble that he's in, that he didn't mean any harm to anyone, and that he's willing to make amends with these people as opposed to just lashing out at each other. And that's kind of the reason that makes it's really what makes the Little Tramp such a likable character. He is gullible, he is naive, he does make a lot of stupid decisions, but he never means any ill will of anyone, and if he realizes that he made any mistakes, he'll feel guilty about it. He'll want to help anyone as quickly as possible, and it's what leads him to making so many lasting friendships in each of his movies. It's a character trope and it's a character personality that I think any casual audience can really understand and relate to. We've all made dumb mistakes without the intention of hurting people, and if we have, we feel guilty about it. We want to make amends. And that's what really makes him such a realistic and likable character. It makes it a lot easier to laugh for him and at the people that he's causing trouble and mischief to. And it also makes us feel a little sad whenever the slapstick happens to him because we've latched onto him as a character so much. But one of for me, one of the best qualities about this movie, and something that I think gets overlooked about silent movies, because I don't hear people talk about this that much, the music. Chaplin was one of the few directors who actually did the musical score for his own films. There's been some complaints about the assistants that he's worked with, who some feel have contributed more to the music, but his primary assistant on Modern Times, and I'm going to try and get this guy's name right here. Let's see. David Raskin described his creative process when it came to writing a musical score. Chaplin knew how to play piano, violin, and cello. What he didn't know how to do was read or write sheet music. So whenever Chaplin knew what each scene sounded like in his own head, he would improvise some notes on a piano or he would hum it out loud, and Raskin would write down exactly what he was humming and put it to sheet music so that they can get a clearer idea of how to record the music and, more importantly, synchronize it to the movie, to each scene, to each pratfall, because the music really does elevate the over-the-top expressions that these characters give, or the much more somber and sad moments in the movie, a lot more depth and tension. Whenever there's a pratfall, the music makes it seem so whimsical and cheerful because what we're watching is funny. But with the dramatic scenes, especially with the song Smile, which he wrote the music, he didn't write the lyrics. The lyrics came around the Nat King Cole times when that song became popular. But especially with that romance theme, it has this somber but bittersweet sense of hope, because the thing that I didn't anticipate going into this movie was that Modern Times was kind of a comedy drama, especially when they introduced this orphan girl, and when she comes across the tramp, they have this abrupt romance, but you still buy into it because they do have a lot of things in common. They have no one else in their lives to depend upon, no friends or family anymore. They make a lot of morally questionable choices for really no reason other than survival. They don't do it because they want to. They do it because they feel as if they have to, and in some cases, yeah, they probably did. And they even do have some greedy moments, especially when they're crashing this department store and they're trying on these new shoes and sleeping in these beds. I noticed very closely that most of the characters in this movie wear black on the outside and white on the inside to symbolize that they're poor. But at one point, the orphan girl puts on these white bed sheets and lies in this all white bed, these silk cushions and these very furry blankets that symbolize their fantasies, their temptations that they want for their own lives. And then once they snap back into the black on the outside, white on the inside, it's that difference between fantasy and reality that makes it really hard to contribute color symbolism to a black and white movie. But Charlie Chaplin really did find a way to make it work. Now, as for problems, I do feel as if the orphan girl, while she was still really good as an actress and as a character, there are some things about her backstory that I thought were going to have more involvement with in regards to the story. But after a while, after this really shitty occurrence happens in her life that changes everything for her, everything else that matters to her, every other person that she's met, they become practically non-existent, and then all she can think about is having a life with the tramp. She has fantasies that are exclusively him and none of these other people that are in a worse situation and that she can't depend upon. But I was under the impression that she would later come back to help them out, but that wasn't the case. Maybe she thought that it was too late for her to do something like that, and if so, I can completely understand that, because the morals are about how the world is a really unfortunate place, and there are always going to be consequences whether you're innocent or guilty of something. But it's no reason to not move forward. It's no reason to give up, because you don't know what lies ahead of you. And it leads to a fantastic ending, a fantastic final shot that is iconic among Chaplin fans, and I completely agree. If you've never seen a silent movie before, definitely seek out Modern Times on Netflix. It is really funny. It's also really sad. The music is top notch. The actors all do fantastic work just with their facial expressions and body language in ways that modern actors, I'm not entirely sure if they can do just as well anymore. They can obviously do well on their own, but compared to actors who did it because they had no choice, I'm not entirely sure. But who knows? Maybe in the future, this genre of silent era might become popular again. Who knows? So for all those reasons, I'm going to give Modern Times a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen Modern Times, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more classical reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to smile.